everyone. Good morning. This was an exciting opportunity to talk about what we're doing in the classroom, both teaching with AI and for me, teaching AI. So I wanted to present a case study that I'm calling moving from programming alone to prompting, augmenting, and automating. So this is a case study of deepening the AI integration into my SIS and iTech 724 class. So text. Text is one of our greatest sources of data that is largely untapped. So approximately 150 terabytes of text is generated daily. So there are all kinds of sources of text for us to use as data. So we have UN treaties, we have annual reports, social media posts, contracts, meeting transcripts, speeches, code, email archives. All of this text is available to us as data. But many students don't have the capabilities, the research capabilities to analyze large-scale text. Of course, we can all read. We can read and do qualitative analysis in that way, but the amount of text that's being generated makes it difficult or impossible to use this as data without having tools that let you augment that. So that's where my course 724 kind of stepped into this process here on campus. Going back to 2014, the course was originally entitled Big Data Analytics and Text Mining. And it's designed to reach out to students across campus. So every semester, I teach it in the fall and the spring. I have students across campus from the Washington College of Law and from doctoral students across campus taking the course. And last spring, we changed the name of the course to better reflect the content in the course. So it's called Advanced Text Analytics with AI and Machine Learning now. So the course is always focused on programming and using the open source languages of R and Python to be able to do large-scale text analytics. And it's a very powerful approach. We welcome students that don't have any programming knowledge to begin with into the course, and we scaffold them up to being confident and competent programmers. Partially how we do that is through 10 hands-on labs that get progressively more difficult. So it starts with very easy hello world type labs, and then moves to more advanced labs all the way up to unsupervised and supervised machine learning labs. So the course is structured in 3 parts, introducing students to text mining, text analytics, really focusing and bearing down on the labs in part 2, and in part 3, introducing them to more advanced techniques that they can use in their final project. So the 10 labs are paired with a final project that's a semester-long research project. So overall, the course works very well. We have a number of learning outcomes that are focused on AI, so we want them to understand supervised and unsupervised machine learning, how to use generative AI and prompting. So these are all parts of the course. This is one of our COGAD Sage AI courses. So AI has been a part of the course from the beginning almost. However, I decided to make over the summer, one other quick point. So I teach the course in the fall and the spring, and every semester I update the course based on a mid-semester evaluation and end-of-semester evaluation. So every semester the course stays fresh and updated. But this past summer, because of all the activity we've been having and all of our weekly Friday AI monthly sessions and all of the things we've been introduced to, I decided to take a deeper dive this summer in revising and reimagining the course. So there are 5 steps that I took that I want to share with you. So the first is I redesigned my lecture on prompt engineering. And rather than making it at the end or towards the end, as students were getting into more technical, challenging labs, so that they could understand large language models and transformers and why you needed prompt engineering, I moved it to the beginning of the semester. So they would learn those skills from the beginning of the semester, and they could then apply those skills to all of their work throughout the whole course. Secondly, I designed a chatbot for the course, and I think I saw Angela here earlier. Angela introduced me, Angela, you here? Angela introduced me to Perplexity Spaces, and so I used Perplexity Spaces to build a chatbot for the course. So the chatbot has the syllabus, it has the instructions for all 10 labs, it has the email links to all of the course textbooks that are available online, and a few other supplementary materials. And I encourage the students to use the chatbot to ask questions, those questions that would be coming to me sometimes. I say, why don't you ask the chatbot first, like when is the first assignment, and what's the name of the first lab, and so forth. So this is working really well. I also updated all 10 labs. So remember, all 10 labs were originally in R, then R and Python, so I teach both languages, but I added deliverables in prompting to all of the labs as well. So while the students were learning how to use R and Python to answer questions, they were also able to learn how to use prompting to answer questions, and then to compare the results of what they got from the NLP side and from the prompting side. And then the step 4 was that I encouraged all of our students to develop their own personal generative AI suite. So what do I mean by that? So starting with this morning, we've all been introduced to a whole range of new tools. These tools are multiplying every day. So we have to think about what are the tools that you're going to really learn and get comfortable with and start to use and understand the intricacies and how they work and how to add system instructions and how to add context and so forth. So I tell them to focus on a specific focused sort of stack of tools that they'll use in the course. Now, one of those is, I mentioned earlier, we program in R and Python. We use as our integrated development environment Positron, which is a new data science specific IDE that came out from Posit, the company that used to be called RStudio. And so Positron, right here. So Positron has 2 AI assistants that are built into Positron. So if you have an Anthropic or OpenAI API, you can interact with those large language models from within the IDE. So you can operate it in a inline code completion mode. So you start to type code and it'll give you suggestions, but not just suggestions based on probability, but suggestions based on your whole code base and understanding your project. There's an ask mode where you can have chat questions, and there's an agentic mode where you can have it actually edit and create code for you based on natural language prompts. So finally, I also updated my use of AI tools in this course policy that I give out at the beginning of the semester. And mine has always been one of the more liberal uses of AI in the course. It starts off with you may use AI in any way that is helpful to you in this course. But I actually encourage them to feel comfortable using the prompts, using the smart text, and so forth. So this has been a pleasure for me to share some of what we're doing in this particular course and how we've transformed it. And I'd be happy to talk more about that and answer questions. Thanks for giving me the good mic too, I appreciate it. What are your questions?
Hello, I'm Mike Alonzo from Environmental Science. Trying to do a similar thing to you, and just curious mostly about the positron experience of how actually having all of these built-in AI has impacted the student learning of the basic code itself, whereas I've been kind of doing teach them the basics and then we introduce AI to help out after.
Right, so that's been the experience this semester, so I'm still evaluating it, and so I'll give you some anecdotal thoughts so far. Because that's what I used to do as well. So I provide pretty substantial scaffolding in the lab instructions where I provide the code and so forth. So the course attracts students with a wide variety of skills. So some who come to the course who've never programmed before, and some who come from our MS Analytics and Data Science programs. So I have to make sure I'm challenging both, all sides of the student population. So some of the students have caught on to this very quickly, and so have both Positron Assistant and the new, it's called DataBot. That's an exploratory data analysis AI engine built into Positron. So I have about 4 or 5 students that have used those pretty extensively throughout the course of the semester, but I have some students who have not touched that at all. They haven't been comfortable using those tools at all, and I think they're at a disadvantage personally. Because one of the things that happens with these tools, and I'd love to talk more about what's happening with Positron, but one of the things that happens is, you're inevitably going to get error messages like you do whenever you're programming. But you can tell it to fix the error for you, and it'll go back and rerun it. Even edit the Quarto file or the script or whatever you're using. It's pretty impressive, and that's why I really think we can't turn away from these tools. We have to lean in and engage with them and keep working through the difficulties. But the increase in productivity is amazing. Yes?
Yeah, so I'm Jeff Lee, I'm from Codot,
Hey, Jeff.
First, great presentation, really love this. My question for you is about validation and how you approach it in your class, because language is so, it's so complex sometimes, and sometimes like the language, large language model annotations aren't going to get it right, deep learning models aren't going to get it right, so I just wondered how you approach that and how you teach about it.
So in terms of language, which type of language? Are you meaning the programming languages or the text?
Like the text itself.
Yes. So we have a number of strategies for addressing that. And one of the cores for me, Jeff, is to stay hybrid. So I gave a talk yesterday at the World Bank around some of the work we're doing on treaty evaluation, treaty monitoring. And we have 2 sides. So on the one side, we want communities to be able to analyze these state reports and so forth. So in most cases, communities are not going to learn R and Python and NLP techniques, but they can use these large language models to make some sense out of the text in these treaties. So it's faster. The stakes are lower because they're trying to get a general sense of where does my country fit, which goals have we met, and so forth. So it's inherently somewhat problematic on the generative AI side, because even the results that you get are challenging to explain sometimes and so forth. So we take a hybrid approach, and even with the course, I've been kind of balancing what's the percentage, but we will never move away from the programming side. That's why I called it from programming alone to programming and prompting. Because with the NLP side, we can be very specific in some of the techniques that we're using. We build lexicons and dictionaries to be able to sort of tease out specific concepts that we're looking for in the text and so forth. I talk about the implementation of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities that has 50 articles. So we've built a dictionary that can identify all 50 articles and the progress that is being made country by country, where the energy and attention and effort is being put. So it's really the hybrid approach, I think, that I use and I'm trying to teach the students to use. Yeah.
Sonia, Walter from SPA and CFE, can you say more about how you had to possibly adjust the assessments in relation to that? Because obviously you've sort of increased the bar for them to deliver, and how do you cope with that, like with the rubrics and assessment tools and all?
Yes, I have detailed rubrics for every single assignment, from the labs to the presentations. So the labs run in parallel with the semester-long project. So the semester-long project is a research project of their choosing that has to meet a basic, what I call an MVP, a minimum viable project in my course. Some of my students are cringing, they've heard this too many times. So there's a minimum skills that the students have to meet in their project. And that starts from the beginning of the semester, thinking through the project, the data, which techniques they'll use, and so forth. And that runs in parallel with the labs, where they're learning how to use the code for the data that I provide them, and so forth. So there's a lot of scaffolding built into all of the assignments, lots of rubrics and so forth. What I'm leaning towards is not grading, say, the labs. Each lab is worth 2 points. So I'm leaning towards not a 1 or 2 points for each lab based on how well you do, but really on a almost like a pass-fail basis. But if you submit it and you've done your best effort, that may be enough on this particular lab. So I'm sort of wrestling with that because as we were saying here, the code is there, so it's really not about, I don't know, I'm wrestling with that. I'm wrestling with that.
Hey, hi. My name is Henry Ho. I'm
Henry.
in Koga too. I'm just question about how you grade the work because AI generate the programming code pretty much all similar and very good too.
Mm-hmm.
So if all the students have the same or similar results, so how you grade them?
So just kind of what I was saying about the labs, for example. So I'm not grading on whether or not they the labs are accomplishing what I'm asking it to accomplish. Because I'm giving them the code to do it and have given them the code to do it. And now I'm encouraging them to use various tools to be able to generate the code. So I'm expecting that they'll be able to complete the lab. My test for it is they submit a compiled Quarto file, and I can review the Quarto file to see, did it compile, did all of the labs, I can go through the deliverables. And so this goes back to this last question. So that does give me some differentiation of whether or not I just accept it, as is, or do I put some differentiation on the lab. But even with all that scaffolding, there are students who don't complete the lab, can't complete the lab, and so that helps us to have the differentiation within the class. So it's not a programming class per se, right? It's a class on analyzing text and using text to answer questions. So the research project is the better place where I'm able to differentiate between students and how well they can use these tools to answer questions.